Hi, and welcome back to Tending Lambs. In my last video, I laid out 3 questions that are most commonly asked of gentle parenters. One was, how do I get my children to obey me without punishments? The next was, how will my children learn that their actions have consequences without punishments? And finally, do gently parented kids just never hear the word no? It may have seemed like I was joking then, but each question is important, so I'm going to take one video per question and do my best to answer them. In this video, I'm going to be tackling how do I get my children to obey me without punishments. One of the hardest parts of gentle parenting for anyone is the relinquishing of control. In most Christian circles, immediate obedience is seen as the highest good when it comes to discipline. The goal is to raise a child who responds to commands cheerfully, immediately, and without grumbling. To be sure, all of us want interactions with our children that are cheerful and voluntary. It makes days run so much more smoothly when things happen without spankings or punishments. Most people don't like giving orders, and most people don't like spanking. But you are sacrificing much of the peace that you're seeking by introducing spankings and other punishments, and violating the responsibility that we all recognize to be fundamental to parenthood, protecting our children from harm. The goal for a gentle parenter is to appeal to their child's reason and capability in an age-appropriate way, just as you would with anyone else. In respecting their person, you are showing them by example how we are to treat each other and helping them to trust your wisdom as a parent. That is what gives your authority weight, not being able to force them to do what you want them to do because you're the parent. Let me reiterate, because this point is so important. Your ability to force your children to do something with a bribe or a threat is not what earns you their respect. Your calm, steady confidence and wisdom are. Hopefully, you want to instill in them the intrinsic motivation to make good decisions, helping them to enjoy treating others with respect, and in so doing, showing them how much better God's plan is for our lives. By treating them as equals, with equally as valid emotions and desires, you are helping them navigate these desires and learn right from wrong, and how to properly address the emotions that they feel. One example of a potentially difficult situation is having to end a really awesome playtime. Every parent knows that ending playtime can be a minefield. You do your best to prepare them by giving them warnings. 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and time's up. But despite your best efforts, the declaration of the end brings either anger or sadness and probably tears. You instruct your child to stop with the tears and help clean up because you have to leave. It's at this point where most punitive parenters will expect or advise a spanking if there is not immediate obedience. Though, in my experience, most people really hate spanking, and with good reason. But because of that, they end up giving in and trying to argue their child into cleaning up and leaving cheerfully. Essentially, trying to convince him to do these things without arguing, which is futile because you're already arguing, and he can sense that he can squeeze another few minutes out of you if he can hold out longer than you can. He is pushing his limits. And at this point, he is learning that his limit is whenever mom or dad gets angry enough to yell or spank. When all the declarations of never spank out of anger fly out the window. You are actively teaching him to fight you, despite your best efforts. The gentle parenting approach, on the other hand, is to embrace the frustration and to use the negotiation as a tool. It starts the same way, with a 5-minute warning, a 2-minute warning, to let him prepare for the end. But when the anger sets in, instead of an order to stop the tears and clean up, the gentle parenter comes in with an affirmation of the emotions and an eye-to-eye conversation. Man, I see how frustrated you are. Yeah, it's such a bummer when we have to leave our friends. Would you like to maybe help us figure out the next time we can get together? Maybe this weekend. When you're met with more resistance and a plea for 5 more minutes, it's here that you might say, I hear that you want 5 more minutes, bud, but I really don't like it when you're yelling at me like that. It's uncomfortable and it hurts my feelings. Can we talk kindly with each other, please? And then maybe we can go through our options. If there's still a lot of anger and yelling and frustration, it's here that I would say, oh man, you really are angry. You're so angry that you can't talk calmly with me. That means I'm going to have to make this decision alone, which means we really have to leave right now. Come on. And then you would scoop up the wiggling child, embrace the anger, say goodbye to your friends, and leave. You are still in the driver's seat as the adult. You are calmly and confidently in charge. And as much as your child may protest, he will be very comforted by the fact that you are so calm in the face of his storm. Negotiation is how people get what they want kindly, adults and children. And by using this moment as a teachable one instead of a punishment one, you are helping your child learn that he doesn't have to lash out with anger to try and gain control, but can trust that when he gives a kind answer, he will get a kind response in return. Even if that response is something he really doesn't want to hear, like, I'm sorry, bud, but we really have to go this time. There's no extra 5 minutes. He's learning to recognize your no as a real no and trust that if there were options, you would let him know, and he can feel sad about this without having to try to exert control. This is how a gentle parenter teaches their children how to recognize their authority and to respect and to trust them. Now, of course, it won't always go perfectly. In fact, it probably won't a lot of the time, but it will get progressively better, and especially as you get more and more comfortable in your role with earned authority. It's really scary to not have spanking and punishments in the toolbox as a way to control a situation. But I promise you, you will see fruit for this labor. It may not come immediately, but it will eventually. And when you start to see it, it is so exciting. If you have any questions about this or even pushback, please feel free to comment on this video or on my Facebook page, and I would love to interact with you and chat about this. And who knows, your questions may even end up in future videos. So, until next time.